What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host, Daniel. And today we're going to be talking about some new information, some new leaked information that was brought to News Nation, a source close to them, talking about the night of the incident, November 13th, in the the wee hours of the morning, where allegedly Brian Koberger entered um, a house on King Road Ranch and viciously took the lives of four beautiful young people. And so, before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody to please hit that like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Tonight, we'll be going live. Apparently, there was a secret court proceeding where there might be a new affidavit coming out. We'll be going over all those details later on tonight if it ends up coming out. That was also another news headline that we're going to be talking about regardless tonight. So make sure you ring that notification bell. Don't miss our lives. This type of content usually gets demonetized, and so the reach doesn't get there. So help the algorithm by hitting the like button. So back to the content. Source close to, um, I guess they said the inner circle of Dylan Mortensen reported to News Nation, or News Nation reported that um, some chilling new details that during the night, Dylan apparently opened the door and yelled out to the noise that was being created. She appeared to have thought that it was friends, and there was just a bunch of horseplay going on, and told them to be quiet. Right now, I've heard this before. A viewer had brought this up to my attention, sent me audio and a video of somebody claiming to be in Dylan's inner circle. And this is basically that source's story. Now, we'll go through it. We'll listen to what they have to say as far as this source goes. But I do want everybody to understand that I have no idea if this guy is true or not. Everything is speculation. I'm only bringing this out. Now, I was aware of this for a few weeks now. I'm only bringing this out now because a source from News Nation that I'm sure that they were able to verify and vet has some similar accounts to what this person who put this video on YouTube is claiming. And so, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I want to add a couple of things so before we move forward. News Nation also had a source who stated that Ethan was attacked in the hallway, and then Xana's injuries were very severe to her fingers and things of that nature. Um, does this account doesn't account for the type of screaming noise you would consider or would think you would hit. But let's get into the content. So
Okay, so before we dive into what I'm referring to about the Fed screwing or attempting
now, real quick, back again. I did I did speed up the audio because it was painfully slow. I think it was actually even slower than I think it was slowed down. I sped it up to almost 1.5%, and it ends up sounding pretty normal to me. But if it sounds fast to you guys, that's probably why. It's because I sped it up. I just wanted to put that out there real quick.
to screw Dylan and give you a brief background as to who I am. So my girlfriend is in Dylan's inner circle. And by inner circle, I mean inner circle. Like they've hung out almost every day since the incident occurred. And I've seen her a plethora of times as well. So you're going to notice I'm not going to use words like allegedly, supposedly, because all of this is actual firsthand factual information. Where should I start to clear things up? First of all, there's a lot of misconception about Dylan suffering from PTSD or trauma or any of that. None of that is accurate. In fact, when we try to console Dylan after the incident, she's the one that was laughing at me and my girlfriend and I, talking about we're so weird, and we tried to give her a hug and stuff. So she's still the same old Dylan. She's had a rough life growing up. She's been through a lot. She doesn't have PTSD and didn't suffer any trauma. Um, the incident that night, uh, and what I'm referring to with the feds actually put a lot of words into her mouth that she didn't say herself first. So there was a lot of leading statements that they were insinuating to her, and she was really scared the first few days, obviously, after the incident occurred. So, like, the reason none of it makes sense in the affidavit is because it didn't really happen that way. So she never stood there shocked when she saw the individual. She was just standing in her doorway, like, like anybody who opens the door. It was just, she opened the door and yelled at Ethan and Xana, and who she thought was their friend. She yelled at them to be quiet. That's what was going on with that situation. And she just went back into the room. She locked the door like usual, and you know, went to sleep. Everything was quiet after she yelled at them, so she didn't think anything of it. For everyone who's creating these random stories about her being shot.
So, according to him, and according to this story, he yelled at Dylan yelled at them, and then turned around and closed the door and locked it. And went to sleep, didn't think anything of it. According to that part, it doesn't specify whether or not he came in contact visually, person to person there. Maybe he's mistaken because he talks about, the FBI coming with pictures and things of that nature. But I did want to bring that out right away. As he says, she yelled at him, turned around, locked the door. Now, again, I want to reference this. I don't know who this person is. It is, as far as the voice goes, I don't know how verified or how close he is to, how if it's real or not. However, some of the things that he was saying a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, are coming out as far as, at least from what News Nation is reporting. And so I just wanted to reference that one more time.
Shocked or traumatized. She didn't realize anything was going on. And it might sound crazy, it might sound dumb, but she really had no clue anything was going on. They're being a little loud, so she yelled at them to be quiet. And that's it. She locked her door and she just went back to her room. And she didn't want to be nosy or anything. So, she was kind of new to that house, so she didn't want to be nosy and, get up all up in their business, especially at, in the middle of the night or early morning. So it's as simple as that. Everyone trying to blow that whole situation into something that's not. Um, so yeah, that's that. And she didn't actually get a real good look uh, at Brian. At the time, she assumed it was one of Xana and Ethan's friend who was just getting ready to leave, who was walking out. She didn't get that good of a look. The feds were really aggressive with Dylan the first few days, which is why she hired the attorney to begin with, because of the treatment of her during the interview, more like an interrogation, to be honest. So that's why she got an attorney, because the way they were talking to her and, they didn't really understand or believe why she's the only one alive when you kind of skip rooms to get to the other two rooms. So she didn't really like the feel of how the interrogators or the feds were talking to her. Um, and within like a few days after the incident, they approached her with pictures of Brian. I was like, "Is this the guy? Do you think this is the guy? This is definitely him, right?" And
So, according to him, after a few days, now, is that a few days after the interrogation portion of what he was talking about? At first few days where, um, just strictly, hounding her, talking to her about, why did they skip her room? Why was she alive? She yelled out. I mean, clearly, if she yelled out in the manner that she did, the whole thing about, did Brian Koberger maybe perhaps not see her doesn't play into this. Now, maybe he's thinking, he's in the commission of this crime. He hears somebody yell out. He's thinking that maybe perhaps they're calling the police. And so he needs to get out of there ASAP. Sees her, knows that she had yelled, probably just leaves, right? Just because police are on their way. This is rural Idaho. This isn't a big area. This is a small area. So you're probably figuring out that the police are going to get there within a matter of minutes, if not less than that. The police department wasn't very far from the house. It was just a few blocks away, probably about maybe 8 to 10 blocks. And so, in my opinion, I mean, it, well, we'll put it this way: in the probable cause affidavit, at 3:26 a.m., he's seen at the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive. That's beyond the police department, right? That's behind it. That's also in a neighborhood where he had to go through some, stop signs and things of that nature. It was a little bit further distance, and it took him all but 3 minutes to get from that area to the 1122 King Road residence. A police officer not having to follow, with lights and sirens, not having to maybe completely follow the rules of the road and lights and stop signs, things of that nature, probably could get there in about 2.5 to 2 minutes. And that's not including if anybody or there isn't an officer that's nearby on patrol. And so once he heard somebody scream, it may have been, all right, it's up, time's up. And that may have been also why he may have left the knife sheath. He hears somebody, forgets, he's like, oh crap, there's somebody awake. Somebody heard me. Somebody's calling the police, time to get out of here. Forgets the knife sheath altogether. And so doesn't realize it until after he's left. We'll continue. I'll back it up a little bit.
Brian. I was like, is this the guy? Do you think this is the guy? This is definitely him, right? And they were almost leading her to believe this has to be the person.
Sorry about that. So either way, we'll go back a little bit. He's saying that Dylan, they gave her pictures of him and pressed her for the identification of Brian Kohlberger. Now, he stated a few days. From all indications, the information wasn't given over to WSU to locate Brian Kohlberger's car until late November. That's more than a few days. Even if, let's just say, we'll give the benefit of the doubt that they pressed her for about 5 days and then gave her an additional week, 7 days. That's still not enough time for the time that WSU went out there and located Brian Kohlberger's vehicle and sent over his picture to Officer Payne, who then saw the eyebrows and thought that these two people could be the same person. And so this is well before that. I wonder what else they had that pointed the arrow at Brian Kohlberger, if this is all true, of course. We'll continue to listen.
Brian. I was like, is this the guy? Do you think this is the guy? This is definitely him, right? And they were almost leading her to believe this has to be the person. And she wasn't really sure, but they kind of put those words in her mouth. It's almost like, they were insinuating it so much to where she was like, yeah, I think, yeah, no, it's definitely him. And that's when they just kind of like ran with it. So what you see in the affidavit is it didn't play out that way. So Dylan's attorney and her, and actually all of us, are pretty upset at how they threw her under the bus.
Yeah, I hear that shuffling too. This is fast forwarded. So initially I thought it sounded like paper shuffling, at normal speeds. And so I think this guy's reading from what he wrote. We'll continue.
And actually all of us are pretty upset at how they threw her under the bus in the affidavit. When's the last time you've seen a witness or like a snitch in a case, their actual names being mentioned? The fact that they didn't redact it. We all.
He used the term snitch in the case. Informant comes up quite a bit. Now, they put Dylan Mortensen's name in the probable cause affidavit. I don't think that they're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think that they're trying to hide her, conceal her, and not put her into the case or when trial comes. So I don't think that's the case. But they use the term snitch. I mean, maybe perhaps Dylan didn't tell her friends everything, especially if she may have known the person or the perpetrator. Perhaps she told the police who she thought they were or who he was, and didn't want to seem to be a snitch, and so told her friends that they showed me pictures of somebody. But the term snitch comes out, it just kind of seems that maybe, well, this also could be a reason why, if these folks here are thinking in this terminology and thinking in this world or what, that they're snitches instead of coming forward to the police with the information that you have, that might lead to why also they were calling friends instead of the police during the time of worry and the most time of panic and uncertainty. And that's one thing I want to bring up too. So this source goes throughout all this information, but doesn't bring out that Dylan called everybody in the house. That was revealed by one of the family members of Ethan Chapin, and why they were questioning why Dylan didn't call police. She was, whatever she saw scared her enough to at least call the other housemates. Now, perhaps, and I've said this before, maybe Dylan did answer. Bethany did answer, and during that call, it gave her some sort of false sense of security, so to speak, and so she went to sleep. That's not how this plays out, but it does seem logical, um, and possible. This guy here who's talking, let's just say he's 100% accurate. His girlfriend is very close to Dylan. It doesn't mean that he got all the information right or he's not exaggerating the story either. So it's not coming firsthand. We'll continue.
All think that the feds and prosecutors threw her name in there purposely to apply more pressure because Dylan was really wishy-washy during the interrogation, and with them, putting these words, set in stone on paper, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on her now because everyone views her as like some star witness, the star of the case. So uh, that's what we all believe, that she kind of is getting screwed over by the feds and the prosecutor, because now she has to testify and she has to say kind of what words they put in her mouth instead of what she actually believed, and what she actually knows happened, like with her own words, not words that were like shoved in her mouth.
This seems to allude that she knows something different and that her belief is different than what's in the probable cause affidavit. Um, I question, what is it that he thinks could be different? Is it just the fact that perhaps, the only thing that's different is that she didn't see anything really, and she didn't really identify Brian Koberger, and that that the law enforcement are trying to push her hand into, positively identifying Brian? That reeks of cover up, to be honest with you. But I would expect the police department to come forward once they had pictures of Brian Koberger to ask her to identify and to see if she could identify him. But to apply the pressure that he's alluding is kind of it's putting somebody under duress, and that's not really typically the best, you know, approach. Because if it comes out that she was under duress and forced to make this witness testimony, then a lot of this case is going to get thrown out. We'll continue.
So, yeah, her attorney's pretty upset. She's pretty upset, but at the same time, she knows that she can be a huge help in this case. So it's not like she's identifying somebody she didn't see. It just didn't play out necessarily like, oh, bushy eyebrows. She saw bushy eyebrows, and was able to 100% identify him. It's just initially when detectives and feds came in and took over the scene. The scene had been contaminated so badly by a the local authorities. When they first came, first responders, they stomped all over the place, contaminated the scene.
He's not wrong. This is a picture from that day there, and you can see that this officer here is not wearing booties. Um, it looks like it appears his hands are covered. He probably is wearing gloves, but he's not wearing booties over his boots. He's stomping all over the ground inside this house. He's not wrong there. Just wanted to point that out.
All the other people that were at the house they were, walking up and down the steps, to make sure what they're seeing is what they're really seeing. So, I mean, this is a scene that was really badly contaminated. So, to equal the playing field, the feds feel like, having a star witness is critical here. Um, but just the way
I will note that that part has to be speculation on his part, regardless of what Dylan knows or what Dylan has told him. There's no way that he knows that information, that the feds need a star witness. They need a witness to cover up some kind of deficiency in the evidence. I don't know if he knows what the entire evidence is. I know we all don't. And so I just wanted to bring that up.
she was being interrogated initially was it's kind of crazy. It's not what you guys think. They weren't being all sensitive and gentle to her. They were really accusatory and kind of, pressured, put the press on her. Thought that she might have something to do with it because it just didn't make sense to them why she's the only one alive. And on top of that, didn't see anything or really hear anything. She didn't want to be nosy, didn't want to, get up in her roommate's business. She told him to be quiet. I mean, the last thing that crossed her mind was people are getting slaughtered next door and upstairs. So I think that's pretty much everything I've covered. So yeah, just to go over the whole, suffering trauma. She was shocked as she saw him walk past her. Like it's not as dramatic as you guys think. Like he was already halfway towards the kitchen and walking out. Um, and for all of y'all that are scratching your heads, yes, police do lie. They've kind of thrown everybody around the ringer through this whole case from the very start. Um, and you have to think about it. Why would a survivor, a victim, have to hire an attorney? Obviously, they were mistreating her pretty badly as they're interrogating her, especially now throwing her name in the affidavit like that. That's all because they're pretty upset she hired an attorney to begin with. And because they want to put a lot of pressure on her from the public for her to be the star witness. But aside from that, she's doing good. She's the same old Dylan. Um, uh, and yeah, no, there's no trauma, PTSD, anything. She really feels for, you know, her friends who are deceased, and she does beat herself up a little bit about not being more involved in the situation that night. But realistically, I mean, something like that's not going to cross your mind that something like that's taking place in your house. So yes, she does feel for the family, and she's really saddened by the whole situation. But as far as her as an individual, she's still the same person. She's not like a traumatized individual. um, so yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything. And let's see. Yeah, no, that's everything.
And that was everything that he had. So a lot of stuff to unpack there, a lot of stuff to listen to. It's a if it's true type of situation, then well, I think this brings up a little bit more questions and maybe perhaps even more of a defense for Brian Koberger, who, let's face it, that witness testimony probably wasn't the strongest evidence there. You have somebody possibly under the influence of alcohol in the middle of the night identifying somebody who's covered their mouth and nose, and the only identifiers are his eyebrows, his height, and weight. That's not the biggest or the strongest case there is. Now, when you compile that up with his phone being off at the time of the incident, you compile that up with um, him being around the area 12 times, the DNA on the sheath, everything else altogether, in a bundle kind of points in this direction of Brian Koberger. But there are certainly some things that open up the eye a little bit and maybe draw a question of like, what's this type of situation? And so let me know in the comment section, guys. Do you guys find the person speaking credible? Do you think that his story is true? It does seem to kind of align with what was reported to News Nation. And what News Nation put out there last night. Like, again, that's the only reason why I put this out there, was because of the fact that News Nation states that they've got a source. So I'm assuming they vetted that source and found that that person was at least who he says, or whoever it was that came forward. It may not even have been this man. It may have been his girlfriend that came forward and spoke to News Nation. However, this information that came forward was a little too close to what I had heard before. and thought I would throw this out there. Let me know in the comment section. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Don't forget, tonight we're going to go live again. Don't want to miss it. Peace.